Hi, everybody. Welcome to Amigos. I'm John.
And I'm underdressed.
Ha!
AKA
Aaron, I
Aaron. You
just
look
I
good.
just got back from the nursing home, and boy, are my arms tired.
Did you reserve yourself a spot over there already?
Listen, about 3 times a year, I take the band over there to put on a special soiree for the
Yeah.
residents. It's always a good thing. Do you ever think about your declining years? You and Flack, you guys are obsessed with your age these days. You can't stop talking about it.
How did you drag me into that? I
Do
didn't
you
have anything to do
ever?
with that.
Well, yeah, you and Flack, you talk about these things. You
It,
converse.
I will
And
say, I think I gave him the idea for the episode of you don't know flack about aging,
see,
or at
that's what
least
I'm
was
talking about.
instrumental in
So,
it. Yeah.
I mean, when you think about your golden years in a retirement community, how are you going to fill your time?
Well, I don't ever think I'll be in a retirement community. If you want the honest truth, I've got plenty to fill my time. I never think about that stuff because I don't want to. If I'm honest. But I will say, having my dad, who's getting up there, he's in his, he's nearing 80 there.
Hmm.
I mean, when I was younger, he was all man. You know what I mean?
Right.
He could whoop you. But seeing a guy like that, decline, it really does make you think. It's like, man, I'm gonna be beat down. Plus, when you get out of bed and you're limping around like a geek, it's like, oh man, it's happened, it's begun. I can't tell you how many years I waited for it to begin, and when it begun, you're like, oh crap, here we go. But man, I just keep walking forward and looking to the sun and hoping everything stays okay. I don't think about any of that declining year stuff, man. I don't, I'm a real positive dude, as you know, and so
Yeah.
that's one of the faults. It's like, I refuse to see the future in a
So
bad
you wouldn't
light.
be the kind of person that would call up one of these places and say, "Hey, I want to reserve this room. I feel like I might be getting dementia 10 years in the future. Hold it for me, please."
I mean, if that, I could call him right now, I'll probably say that. No, I don't think. For one thing, if you were getting dementia, how would you remember you did it?
That's true.
But
That's the downfall.
I figure near the end, it depends on one or two things. If I find just an outstanding woman,
Yeah.
in the next, say, 10 years, then things could change.
Yeah,
Right?
that's true.
If I don't, I can see a dorm situation with some of my other enfeebled idiot pals.
Yeah.
Like, it's sort of like a Real World for geezers,
Mhm.
remember that show?
Yeah.
I could see that in the future.
I feel like that would be excellent content if you, the Chud, and TSI Matt moved in together.
Well,
and
Matt's
just
your
taped up-
age.
It doesn't. He's
Why
an old
couldn't you
soul.
move in too?
Okay. Well, I'm already married. I'm disqualified.
Well,
So-
Eve could move in. We need somebody that could take care of all the chores and stuff. And be nice. We need some nice person in the house.
Well, as long as you lay out her duties just like that, I'm sure she'll want to move right in. We need somebody to take care of the chores. You're in.
I mean, listen. I was thinking to myself, if between you, because when you said, "Well, I'm married," I was like, "Who do I really want in the house? Do I want Boat or Eep?" And I'm sad to say, Boat, that you're out the door because
Listen,
Eep
if
is
I had
nice.
to choose between me
She's
and my
fun
wife,
to be
I
around.
would choose her too. That's not a hard choice. The Real World, the tagline was, "What happens when people stop being polite?"
Yeah.
At what point did you stop being polite to the Chud?
I'm always polite to everybody, all the time. I don't have a crossword to say to anyone, Bo. You know that.
I don't know. Why does Chud always sit on you when when he enters the room at Matt's house?
You mean
Seems
like
he's taking out his
verbally?
aggression on you. No,
He's-
you're sitting
well-
on the recliner and he comes and he sits right on your lap.
Here's the thing, Chad. Well, it's not like it's a fun thing. It's a violent thing. Don't get it crossed or twisted. The thing about the Chud is I've known Chad since '93.
An incredibly long time, 30 years.
No, that's wrong. It was actually 89 or 90 when I
Wow.
met him. Okay,
More than 30 years.
and I have he's such an easy target. He's one of my favorite straight men of all times. As hilarious as that sentence is, because he sets you up for everything. It's always easy to dunk on him, and I've been dunking on that guy for as long as I've known him. And like after a while, you build up a certain amount of anger. For one year for his birthday, I let him hit me in the face with a pie. That's where that whole thing got started because I knew he wanted to.
Oh.
Yeah, because because I knew he's held a slight resentment, an amusing friendship like resentment towards me. And so I let him hit me in the face with a coconut cream pie, and he loved it. He thought that was great, So
Maybe you
I'm
should
not.
you
I'm
should
not
do
a
that again at the end of Amigathon.
no, because the last guy that did that almost broke my head. I should hit Hat Chad with a coconut cream brick.
Aaron, I've got a real coconut cream brick for you this week. It's called Darkmere.
What a transition! Here we go. Sounds like we got breaking news, Boat, after that theme song. Sounds like the Darkmere love theme they ripped it off the 7 o'clock news, in my opinion. This is an interesting title this week, Boat. It's Darkmere, The Nightmare's Begun.
Yeah.
What a tagline, eh? Had you ever given this a whirl before this week?
No, knew nothing about this one this week.
Yeah. It's funny. I don't think I'd ever heard of this one, if I'm honest. And if you consider the pedigree, because this was published by Core Design, and my God, I thought we'd played everything they ever did. But here's another. But of course, this was developed by an outfit called 0 Hour Software. I looked into these guys, and as far as I could tell, this is the only title they did on the Amiga. Was Darkmere. Of course, Core Design. Geez, there's a litany of things that they've published over the years. This was designed by a fellow named Mark K. Jones. And Mark, he's worked on a lot of games. Some of the stuff, I'm looking here to see if we've played any of these things. I think we have. He worked on Cybernoid 2, Dragonstone, Insects in Space. How did we miss that one? Platoon, Rubicon, Space Hulk, Stormlord, and Total Recall. The coders on this were Paul A. Hodgson, who worked on a game called Betrayal, and Andrew J. Buchanan, who worked on Rubicon, the aforementioned Rubicon. And the graphics were from the Mark Jones, who we just mentioned, and Richard Fox. And the music on this, and this guy needs a shout-out, Boat. Martin Iverson. He's done a lot of music. It's not a guy whose name sprung into my brain instantly when I read it. He's did the music for Agony, Banshee, Blastar, Chuck Rock 2, Heimdall, Skeleton Crew, a lot of stuff we played. So, big thumbs up to Martin. He's done some good work in there. I'm not saying that this theme's my favorite amongst those, but it's okay. It's an okay song. This is an ECS OCS joint. 4 big discs, Boat, on this one. And this one, I was trying to figure out when this came out, and it's somewhere between 1993 and 1994. I saw several different release dates on this.
Yeah, I saw the same stuff. Yeah, I couldn't figure it out.
I'm guessing right around Christmas. You know what I'm saying? That'd be my guess, but that is a guess. And who knows for sure. Again, I mentioned that this was a 4-disc wonder from 93. Let's just call it 93. That's when the work was done on the thing. When you look at this game, when you boot it up, Boat, one of the things it's been heralded for, where it's incredibly attractive, isometric graphics. What did you think of this when you just at first glance?
Yeah, so this is a game that when I started it up, and I button right to the action. I watched no introduction. Looked at no options. I don't think there were
on the
options.
introduction when you're done. Yeah, I did.
And I just went into this, and I was blown away. This is another one, Aaron. This is another one that shows you that in the right hands, there was nothing that could touch the Amiga graphically well into the 16-bit era. These are some of the most remarkable graphics, and this is ECS OCS. This is not AGA. And it's stunning. There's animation, there's colors, there's a smoothness to your character as he walks around. This is, if it's not the most graphically impressive action role-playing game, or whatever you want to call this particular genre, I can't think of one that looks better.
I'm going to agree with you, Boat. I I was real surprised when this came up. You know, when I hear so I read this isometric RPG, I'm like, oh Lord, oh sweet Lord, here we go. Because me and you've been down the road.
Oh
You know
yeah.
what I mean? And so, and it's not like isometric's been great to us
No.
over the years. I mean, it takes a certain mindset, and I think people grew up with it. And we didn't necessarily grow up with isometric games over here that all that much. And we had Marble Madness and stuff, but I mean, it was a much bigger deal in the UK and in Europe. And so when this honed in the view, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, this is what I'm talking about. This looks good, and the characters they look. They look like maybe isometric versions of like the Dude for Gods or something. They look good and
Yeah.
they're detailed. There's sort of I get a little tinge of something like uh, they have a little tinge of like almost like a Psygnosis quality to the presentation, you know. But there's a little bit of like the graphics have a tiny bit of like a Chaos Engine feel. I mean, I say this with all due respect. These graphics are very nice.
Yeah.
They're moody. I could see a certain set of people, and it would probably be me and you, especially you, who would look at a lot of the graphics of this and be like, "Oh, look at this! It's a lot of dull browns and greens," which it is. But they fit. This is one of the games where they actually fit the mood of the game.
Exactly.
This is not a
Exactly. Because
sunny
this
game.
game is, I'm sure you're going to get into it when you talk about the plot. This is a
Yeah.
game that is the gloomy brown, gray, and green is very befitting due to what has happened to this kingdom.
Right. So I'm gonna just briefly summarize the plot of this game. So um, there's a king who takes a wife, and the wife has a child, and as the wife has had the child, the wife is kidnapped, and the king never goes his whole life and never finds his wife, and when his son grows up, he's lamenting the loss of his wife, and so they go out to try to find the wife. So as best as now you can clean that up, but that's the Cliff Notes version of the plot as I read it. Does that
Well,
sound about right
there's
to you?
also the Darkmere itself,
Right.
which
Get into it.
okay, continue. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
So
Because that's affected with
the
most of what I know.
Darkmere is a curse that has been laid on this village and the surrounding environs by the evil wizard in this game. So your job is to go and take revenge and defeat the evil wizard and rid the kingdom of this Darkmere cloud of gloom. It's not unlike the in Return of the King in the third volume of the Lord of the Rings, where Sauron has this cloud that descends upon Minas Tirith, and everything is kind of cloaked in this sort of endless twilight.
Thank God for your encyclopedic knowledge of the Tolkien works. And by the way, the guys that made this had read a little bit of Tolkien.
I bet
You know
they
what
had.
I mean? Well, I mean, you can tell because the first place you go is a place called the Tolkien.
The Tolkien, yeah.
You've got a sword that's very, very reminiscent of Sting. Every time every time that the orcs are near, the sword lights up. Which, if you ever read The Hobbit, that's exactly the way Sting works, I recall. So yes. I will say you are confronted with a story at the beginning of this. Now, I'll give them props for putting the story in the game, and also I'll give them props for letting you skip the story if you wanted to. But it's there, the entirety of the story, if you wish to watch the story. So once you start the game, you're effectively cast in the role of the king's son, an elven king's son who is in a city, and he's basically prowling the streets. Much like we mentioned, the city's dark. It's a hazy town. It's a dangerous town where it has just gotten basically lambasted and wiped out by orcs and dragons. In fact, as I recall from reading some of the flavor text, some of the orcs were carried in by dragons, airlifted, if you will, into town. And some of them linger behind, and so amongst the townsfolk are also monsters you've got to deal with. Most of the time it's orcs, occasionally it's dragons, and once in a blue moon on the early part of the game, you'll see a rat or a bunny, something like that you could dispatch. So we've established the graphics are good. Briefly mention the sounds in this boat. After the opening theme, pretty much most of them, there is no real music per se that I came across. It was mostly just like the sound of wind.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, much like the Spinal Tap record, this game breaks like the wind.
Nice reference, Bode. So did that irritate you?
Yes.
Okay.
When you're playing a sprawling, fantasy, dark fantasy, role-playing action title, you want to have a stirring score behind what you're doing. You want to have pieces of music that are playing that both set the mood and inspire you to whoop some orc butt. And the sound of the wind blowing through the streets doesn't inspire me to do anything. This game is such a feast for the eyes that it's a disappointment, and it's a disappointment that I felt every single second I was playing this game, that it didn't have a majestic soundtrack that could match the quality of the visuals.
I will say the only good point for the sound is that it does help cater to the fact that it's a sad, dark, desolate place where yes, I'd rather had some sound too, but it could be worse. I want to touch base on this early before we get real deep into this, because this bears some notice. So this game, I mentioned that this game was developed by 0 Hour Software, right? And that's sort of true, okay? Darkmere actually began its life as being developed by an outfit called Arcane Developments, okay? And the game was going to be the game was going to be what it is. Effectively, it's a big sprawling adventure, but it became too big and sprawling for Arcane.
It sprawled out of their hands.
Yeah, and so Core Design was like, can we have the game yet? And they're like, we're not there. So finally, as far as I can tell, Core Design basically said, listen, Arcane Developments, you're out.
Yeah.
They basically seized control of this game, and 0 Hour Software was effectively the in-house development crew from Core. So you could almost say that Core did this game. They did a good chunk of it. Now, I've read, and I don't know if you looked into this at all, but I read varying reports as to how much of this game that we play is the actual game that was developed by Arcane, and how much, because I read some places that said they almost had to practically completely redo the whole game.
Yeah, I read that in a couple sources, but neither one of those were what I'd call authoritative. So this could be all internet hearsay.
Yeah, but I am pretty sure that the development part of it, in terms of like the Arcane getting the boot, is true.
There's no question that was a historical reality.
So you could think there are parts of me that feel like some of this game doesn't necessarily fit together, and I'll get into what. But I mean, it's not like it made me not like the game. It's just there are some things that I wonder if they had started their lives as something else. So let's talk about the game, movement in the game itself. So we mentioned that you play the elf. You run around this large city, and when I say large, I mean this. Of course, this is as I recall, and I only got on the first level. I never saw the second or third level. Apparently, this is a three sprawling maps of a game. When I say sprawling, I mean the maps are. You saw, I'm sure, an overhead map of this. I mean, it's insane, isn't it?
Massive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's built like a city. I mean, with blocks and streets. And as you go through the game, if you push in a direction, this is your favorite, Bode. If you push in a direction and hit your button, your guy will swing his sword, except for one direction where he'll block.
Mm-hmm.
If you just hit the button, you will bring up a menu. You will do this a lot. I will say that did not. There was no control issue for me with accidentally bringing up the menu. Did you ever have that happen to you?
No.
Yeah, because I mean, you get used to the combat, and we'll get into the combat in a minute. But when you hit the button on this game, you bring up a menu. This game is real rich in menus.
Yeah, it is.
And the menus will give you some things you can do. You can examine, you can search, you can ask for help, and then those will break into submenus depending on what you see or what's around you. For example, right out of the gate, if you walk up this barrel, you can see it on the screen. There's some cheese on it. You can hit examine, and it'll tell you what you see, and then you can hit search, and it gives you a list of everything you can pick up, which is great. I like that. You don't have to go search around like an idiot. It's all there on the list. Now, the things I don't like were, for example, if there are 10 coins, you have to hit coin 10 times as the little thing goes down, which is odd. An odd choice. Your guy has, as far as I can tell, he has an infinite inventory. Because I mean, you'll be walking around like a dollar store in this. So you've got everything from cups to coins to chunks of metal to all sorts of food, rancid food. I mean, you can have anything. But I will say, when you pick up things and you've got a huge inventory of things, you can go through and examine everything you've got in your possession. And everything you examine has a text blurb. And this is not a garbage text. These guys were, I mean, in my opinion, you may differ, Bode, but these guys actually knew how to write. And their descriptions are quite good. And as you examine the stuff that you have in your possession, once you've looked at it, if your guy can identify it, it will then become identified in your inventory. So, for example, if you look at a potion, and it's like, this is a potion, that will grant the drinker excessive strength. The name will change from potion to potion of strength, etc., which is good. I like that. When you search around, sometimes you'll see a dead body, for example, and then when you hit examine or search, it'll say search. One of the options you'll have is to search the corpse. There's a lot of detail work in these menus. Now, the downside, there's a lot of detail work in these menus. Everything requires you to use these menus for everything. And so you're going to be looking at a lot of menus a lot of the time. And I know this is a turnoff for a lot of people. How did this sort of system strike you, Bode?
Well, to me, this is the logical reaction of somebody who thinks they are going to be designing a game for the CD32. I think this game, and I don't know if I read this or if I just kind of inferred this, but the fact that you do not use the mouse or the keyboard at all, I think you have to use the keyboard to start the game, I think. But other than that, I don't think you have to use the keyboard at all. And you don't use the mouse. This is what they thought to themselves. This is how we should structure the menu system. And it's interesting because the way that they do it is different than almost any other role-playing type game that I've ever played. If you think about Japanese role-playing games, you see menus that are nested, but they're in sort of a tree-like structure. So you see different columns of things. So you might see like in Dragon Warrior, for instance, you might see search there. So you click on search, and then there'll be one more menu of just the things that you can take. And so what you're doing is a set of kind of discrete actions where it's like, say, there's a chest in a room. You in the first couple Dragon Quest games, you go to the chest, you hit your button, that opens up the menu. You hit search, it says there's a chest here, and then the chest opens as a menu. It'll either open the chest automatically, and you can take the contents inside of it, or you have to search the chest again. But what you don't have is this sort of interconnected menu structure where you open a barrel, you see an item, and before picking up the item, you can examine the item. So you have this sort of infinite regress of actions that you can take, in which the windows on the screen in sort of classic Windows 3.1 style cascade on top of each other. So you see like a series of these parchments that are just layer upon layer upon layer on the screen, and it shows you just how far down the rabbit hole you've gone in the menu tree itself. This is very innovative, but it's also not the best. It would be better if they kind of either made you take discrete steps to where you're only looking at one or two layers of menu at a time. and you can accomplish things that way, or just do away with this kind of cascading window menu system altogether and just make a cursor based a scum type engine where you see all your commands down at the bottom and you can still control things with the controller just like you do say in the NES version of Maniac Mansion. This is unique and it's okay, but it is really cumbersome because you have to do a lot of kind of complex things within these nested menus.
I think it's well stated, Boat. It really is a conundrum, all right? Because listen, we've complained about this before, being lost in just a cascade of menus, right? But these menus, as many as they are, they're quite brilliant in a lot of ways. For example, if you walk up to a trunk or a chest and you want to open the chest, if you hit the use button into your inventory, it will already select what you need to use, for example, or what you need to give someone. It will have it pre-selected, so it knows what you need. So you don't have to go through your inventory to look for stuff or hope you've got it. You either have it or you don't. It'll show you right there.
Right.
This is a good thing.
But I'm going to stop you right there, though.
Yeah.
Because what they should have done, because it's already so quote unquote smart, what they should have done is just eliminated the menu choice at all. Like, say for example,
that's where I was heading. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Say you've got the first quest in the game. You have to give the blacksmith 5 ingots. Okay.
Yeah.
So what they should have done is once you've collected the 5 ingots, you go to the blacksmith and the blacksmith says, "Hey, thanks for the ingots, pal. Here's your next thing that you need to do to complete your quest," instead of making you go into the menu at all and selecting the ingots and going through everything. I'm sorry that I cut you off for that.
No, you very articulately said what I was going to say. That there were areas. This game to me is your a hybrid, because a lot of this game reminds me of almost like your C64 style dungeon crawls. Very meticulous, very menu-y. But it's combined with some of the modern trappings of a 16-bit Amiga game. It's all joystick driven. It's all one button. And I actually like that. In fact, I liked this game a lot. I really did. But it's not perfect. And there are there are actually things worse than the menu system. We'll talk about them in a minute. But the menu system, as such as it was, they saved themselves, in my mind, just by the sheer amount of work they did to bring out all the items, all the dialogue. There's a ton of dialogue in this game. There's books. I mean, it's actually I'm not gonna say it's ahead of its time, but I mean there are things in this game that remind me when I used to play EverQuest, for example. But there were the problems the menu system has is just ease of use. That's something that maybe this sort of menu system just was a little bit beyond them, or maybe this is just the style of the time. I don't know, but they could have made you have to go to it less. And if you think about it, you never do things like swap weapons, for example.
Well,
right?
There's only one weapon in the game.
Right. Well, but my point is, think of the menu system is complex. That's without having to swap weapons or put our armor on or anything like that.
Yeah. So there's
what that would have been like.
This is not a sword and sorcery RPG in the style of any number of games, Ultima, etc., where you're constantly specking out your hero with new and better crap. That's not what this game is. This game is a lot more similar to basically, I mean, this is basically a very, very large, sprawling, beautiful game of something like Batman for the ZX Spectrum. You have a large environment that you're walking around in with a lot of NPCs, and you have a series of fetch quests that you have to do to get items. Okay. Now there's no platform puzzling in this, so it is different than the classic Spectrum isometric games. But it's still you're confined to a single perspective, and that by its nature limits a lot of what you're able to do. This game is interesting because it is sort of the last gasp of this style of game that I know of. I cannot think of another isometric game that has this kind of a feel, and I'll tell you why. It all has to do with resolution. In this game, even though the map is sprawling, the rooms are laid out in a very 8-bit style, in that all of the rooms are the exact same height and width, and you're traversing them. You may not be able to go everywhere in the room. Man, that's one of the problems with it with this type of game. But you're limited to a screen by screen exploration.
It's
In late
gritty.
Yeah. In later isometric games, they zoomed the resolution got better on computers, so you could have detailed graphics that were smaller, so you could keep the beautiful detail of what you see in Darkmere, but you have so much more screen real estate due to things like VGA graphics. And so this game is sort of it's sort of a throwback. It was even a throwback when it was new, because there were just nobody was making this kind of game anymore. Um, the biggest problem that I have with this game, I agree with you. I think this is a good game.
Yeah.
The I do not like the extremely limited space you have to explore each screen. Okay, if you look at every screen in this game, 90% of them, you're looking at a hallway. It's a hallway. That's all it is. It'll either be a hallway, which is a street, or a hallway, which is a forest path, or a hallway, which is in the cave. You have at the beginning of the hallway, you move towards the hallway, and you either go through a door or you go to another hallway. When I play a sprawling adventure style game, I like to have a lot more freedom of movement. I want to be able to run around and look in nooks and crannies. I want variety in my life. And this gets back to my problem with dungeon crawlers. Um, this game is very much the same all the way through. And a lot of it just has to do with the limitations of the isometric design. When you design a game isometrically, um, well, it just seems like you're cutting off a lot of the usable screen real estate for exploration because you have to craft the illusion of a three-dimensional space.
I can understand where you're coming from. I mean, and this is a throwback game to like to the Spectre, where of course ISO was a big deal on the ZX. I mean, it's funny. This game could have been done full screen, but I
Yeah.
mean, it was a choice. It was a graphical choice. I think
Well, I think it was a graphical choice, and it also probably had to do with the limitations of the system. I mean, with a game this sprawling, I don't know that it could have been like a free scrolling type thing. I just
I,
don't know if it could have.
I wouldn't be surprised if it could. I think a lot of it's force of habit. We've talked about this before. A lot of these guys, they grew up with these sorts of games. This is what
Yeah.
they know.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to think, why did they use the isometric angle on so many of the old ZX games? I think one of the reasons they did that was because they can make them look better. They can make them look more interesting than you could just a flat surface. The Amiga, you don't necessarily need to do that. I think there's more horsepower there, but I think this is, and not to me. I mean, I'm not ragging on all the ISO games. I mean, I think it worked for this one, but I mean, they could have rendered this, I think, straight up. If they'd wanted to, and you would have gotten more real estate. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But it does. I mean, it adheres to the grids and everything you would expect an isometric game to do.
Yeah. Now
On
the worst part of this game, though, the absolute worst part of this game is the combat.
the
The
combat,
combat
yeah,
and the monster AI. To even call it AI somewhat gives it too much credit.
yeah.
Uh, all of the monsters in this game have one game plan, and that is to rush you. Do not stop rushing you until you hack away at them and they die or you die. The monsters come in I wouldn't call it a wide variety, but there are 5 or 6 monster types in this game as you go through. And they're all okay. They all look good, but there is just when you read the manual and you look at the previews of this game when they interviewed the developers, they were big on saying, with all these problems in this game, there are different ways that you can solve them. You can use brains or you can use brawn. Well, I mean, I guess if brains means you just kind of avoid combat as much as you can by moving through a screen with an enemy, I guess that's right. But there's not any sort of tactical weapon swinging in this game at all. I mean, if you watch people that know what they're doing, they basically corner an enemy, hack away at it in such a way that they can't be hit until it dies, rinse and repeat. Did you find that to be the case as well?
Well, yeah, I mean, you've got a couple different. I think you've got three different attacks with your sword, and you've also got a block. I didn't use the block that much, Bo, if I'm honest. Yeah, I've watched people play that were better than me and just stole their gimmick. If you just angle it right, most of the time you can hack guys up and they can't touch you.
Yeah.
When you do start combat, two health bars will show up at the bottom of the screen, one for you and one for your opponent, and then a picture and the name of your opponent or type of opponent will come up on the side. It's funny when you are confronted with multiple opponents, they'll happily stand in line to get slaughtered, and they will follow in with their fallen comrade the exact same path. It's like, I mean, they're real idiots,
They're
Every
real
time,
dumb. They're
and the
real
funny
dumb.
thing is, it's like when you kill them, if you hack away at them enough, your health goes up, and you just sort of drain their health, and then you're in good shape, you're ready to rock and roll.
Yeah. I mean, this is the type of thing that I mean, it's so endemic of the personal computer, gaming on the personal computers. You have this game that it's a visual feast.
Yeah.
Just absolutely stunning. Yet no thought whatsoever has been given to the actual gameplay of the game, in which you are supposed to be this awesome sword fighting genius. And this, I guarantee you that was the very last thing that they put in this game.
Well,
Because you can tell everything else was well thought out. The menus, like you said, the text in this game is very well done. When you
yeah.
talk to people, you want to read what they have to say. It's good. It's good. And I feel like they just got to the end. They needed to get the game out, and they're like, all right, just put the monsters in and then ship it.
Well, we know the game was behind.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when I mentioned that parts of the game felt disjointed, the combat sort of where I was leaning. The combat in this game, I mean, because we didn't mention it, but I mean, amongst the things you could get in your inventory is magic. You can get all sorts of interesting potions, and potions of strength, stuff you would think that mattered, but for the most part, like anytime, I don't know if I ever died more than a couple. Right, maybe the first couple times I tried it, I got killed. But once you get cooking, this game is quite an easy entry to get into. I mean, you can
Well,
jump right
it's just
in.
time. What
Right,
you're
but
doing, yeah, it's not a difficult game at all. You're
the only
investing a lot of time. There's a lot of trial and error. And you do learn that there is nothing to be gained by killing enemies,
yeah,
except for those that
yes,
you have to kill for specific items or for specific quests.
I would kill some just to get my health back up if I'd had to fight somebody else. But one of the things when I played this, the thing that haunted me the most, I lost 2 games by just not saving correctly, and that sucked because I was really getting in there. I had a lot of good stuff. You save
This
your
game,
game with potions in this. Now I think the WHD load has a separate. I saw a checkbox which I never tried checking that would let you save your game in a different way, but you
yeah,
actually get potions that they're called like time rewind potions, I think, something like that,
right.
and that's how you save your game. And of course, I was playing this on the Mister. I had trouble getting my game to save correctly. That sort of screwed me a couple times. But in terms of like, this is an approachable game
Oh
for
yeah,
anyone that
yeah.
wants to get into it. And aside from that, I mean, the combat, like Bo said, you can just sort of leave. I mean, if you want to, for
Now
a lot of the combat.
there are some other things that I think are worth knowing, and I think some things that hurt the game. Um, a lot of people would look at a game like this and they would say, okay, this is an action role playing game. It's a hack and slash, getting inventory, doing quests, things like that. Um, but one of the hallmarks of the role playing genre is character progression, and there is no character progression in this game.
Yeah.
In fact, you can't even take items with you when you complete each one of the 3 levels. When you leave the city and you go to the forest, you lose all of your inventory. That sucks. That's no good. Now, I understand why they did it. They did it because they didn't want to make the game too easy. But if you're making a role-playing game, I mean, why are you bothering to play if you can't somehow start as a weakling and end up as a warrior?
It was an odd choice. You know, it's I was reading some of the developers talk about this game. You mentioned that you weren't sure they would be able to pull this off if it was full screen. And I think if they'd started from scratch to build a game like that, they probably could have. But as
Yeah.
the game was inherited, clearly they ran up against some stuff. Because I was reading where they were talking about how they planned on having digitized voices in the game, but they were out of memory, okay, which probably supposed to there's no music. It also will probably, I wonder if some of these weirder problems, like the combat, like the save game thing, like the lack of progression. Again, I wonder if that wasn't partially due to the fact that this changed developers, and we know for a fact they were in a hurry to get this out the door. And
Yeah.
so, that these are the kind of little hiccups that you can't give this game an A+ by any stretch of the imagination. It's just too many of these. There's a little bit of disjointedness in there, and that's the thing about this game. It is truly a mixed bag when it comes to. I mean, it does a lot of stuff right. The movement does well. The menus does pretty good. The feel, the ambiance, but the more basic stuff is where it drops the ball. I mean, like you said, when you can't progress, a lot of people like that. If you can't take your stuff with you through levels, that's weird. It makes you wonder why, because no game does that. So yeah, that's a screw up. This game was rumored, Boat, and this is something else I wonder about. This game was previewed in Atari ST Magazine in '93, but they never released an ST version of this as well. So Darkmere only appears on the Amiga. So it is an exclusive. I could easily have seen a game like this on the ST because there's not really any scrolling to worry
Yeah.
about. So you could
And again,
done it.
maybe that's why they made that design choice as well, as they knew they would be able to downport it to the ST.
I wonder if they would plan on porting this to other things because it was ready to go. Like this would fit perfectly in the PC, for example. You could do it
Yeah.
easily.
Yeah.
So one would wonder, and I don't know about sales, but it's '93. But I think this would have fit comfortably on the PC. I think it would have been a nice title. I was interested to see how this would score, and because I thought to myself, if I'm a magazine reviewer, I'm looking at this. It checks a lot of the nice boxes of things I like, and for me personally, the magazines really were kind of muddy on this one. Lemon gives us a 8.23, and Lore over at Hall of Light gives us a 74. Most of the magazines had this in the low 80s. Amiga Computing, Amiga Format, Amiga Joker, all had this at 80%. Amiga Magazine 7 out of 10, so 70%. Amiga Power 69%. CU Amiga 79%. The One 82%. The average magazine rating 78, which I'm not going to fight them on it, but that maybe is a tinge low, but you can certainly see how you could get docked points on some of this. But this wasn't hated. I read some of the reviews. They seemed to receive it pretty well, but they also had some of the same questions we did. Why does the combat suck? Why are there so many menus? Why can't you take your inventory forward? I mean, they weren't stupid. Even the magazines figured this out pretty early on. And so that was sort of their hang up. Did we get any Discord action review-wise on this one, Boater?
Yeah, we got a couple reviews this week. First one comes from Alien Breeder. He says, Darkmere is an interesting pick. When this came out, I remember how amazing this looked. I also remember playing it and not getting very far. So I played it again today. The first thing I can say is we had a lot more patience back in the day. The constant menu shuffling for searching, inventory, etc. is crushing to this game. You can spend 15 minutes and really get nowhere because you're flipping through the menus. So while this does look great and the concept is there, the execution is just weird. Why can't you walk into a room, fight with a goblin, go over to the cheese, and automatically pick it up like every other game ever? I can see that they were trying to take the dungeon crawler and take it to the third person, but it just doesn't work. The spiritual successor, Dragonstone, is much, much better and one that I've played a ton of. Overall, I have to give this one 690 top bananas out of 1,000. Pajako 6502 writes, I loaded this up and decided to sit through the intro text so you don't have to. It's long. Now, visually, this game looks amazing, and walking around the map and exploring the streets is quite interesting, but the actual gameplay leaves a lot to be desired. So you have to cram everything into one button. But honestly, I think I would have preferred a hybrid mouse, joystick, or joystick keyboard system for this game. The menu and inventory system is a chore to use as you're constantly in and out of menu trees, and I can't for the life of me imagine what I wouldn't want to pick up one of an item rather than one at a time. And the combat system is tough to get to grips with. The four directional movement of the game means you have to line up and fight to hit enemies. Plus, you're constantly running into baddies, and after a while, it gets tedious and not fun. The audio was depressing, to be honest. That wind sound did not make the game exciting, and it grates very quickly. I'll admit these kinds of games are not really for me, but this one was just too slow and intuitive to get into. 6 out of 10. Graham W. Vebke writes, Darkmere, the nightmare has begun, is a nightmare you should not begin.
No.
A game in this genre needs good inventory management and decent gameplay mechanics. Instead, you get neither. Uninspiring graphics using the sewer color palette and the sounds the CIA could use for psychological warfare makes the slow-paced and repetitive campaign even more pointless. Top it off with glitches, and it's a game I just can't wait to forget about and begin playing with the page margins and fonts and Final Writer. I discovered someone actually recorded a speed run of this game and completed it in just over 73 minutes, which in my opinion was a waste of just over 73 minutes. An overly generous 2 out of 10.
And Graham went to work on that review. Good Lord.
That's right. And Jeff Hanna finally writes, it's like a Viking version of The Last Ninja, but so much worse.
Oh man, I like this one way more than The Last Ninja. I'll tell you that right now. You know, a couple of the guys mentioned a couple of things we should probably bring up. Of course, I played this on the Mister, and I didn't have this trouble, but I read a lot of people talking about how the more things you had in your inventory, the slower the game ran and the inventory ran. That's a problem. I will say occasionally when I made a turn or went down a road, it would take longer than I would have expected for it to keep me going.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's a glitch. Or, of course, I did have trouble saving the game as well, but that could be a WHD load thing. The sound, it does get a bit grating. I will say one of the things they do, it's funny when you go inside buildings and stuff, it does actually deaden the sound. So if you want to hang out in a building, one of the things I liked about this was, you know, this is the ultimate collection game. I mean, you collect so much stuff in this, it's ridiculous. But one of the fun things to do in the early levels was like, you'll just find random keys around and it just lets you go break into people's houses. You can go in there, take their stuff, look around. It was fun. I'll go to the hotel, break into people's rooms, go to the bar and do it. It was fun. You had a good time doing that.
Well, there was a certain element of games like this, and I think the early Morrowind game or Elder Scrolls games are like this too. We're just being able to do stuff like, hey, you want to pick up all the bones of this skeleton one by one? Go for it. Do it.
Yeah.
You want to break into this random person's apartment where there's nothing you need, but you can just go and do it? Yeah, do it. And there's fun in that to me. And I'm glad that they have stuff like that. But if you're a magazine reviewer looking to work your way through a title just to see if it's good or not, and you're constantly being given red herrings like that, I can see how it would be annoying.
I can understand, but I mean, I like the openness. That was something that was sort of in some of the old 8-bit stuff. But one of the things I liked about this was, like for example, you'd pick up a key, you would identify the key and say like, this is the key to like number 4 Hayden Street. Then you could just casually walk to number 4 if you had nothing else to do and just go in there and look around. Yeah. I like that. Even in Everquest, you can't go in there and rob everybody. I did also like the fact that for an isometric game, I could get around quite nicely. That everything was laid out pretty well, and it had little arrows to point to where you need to go. I like that. That make it simple for me. That's what I liked. I don't want to be hung up on that. So it really is a mixed bag. But I really say I really enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. I mean, listen, I was a little bit dreading this one, Bode. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, we've been beat down, over the years. But I mean, compared to some of those 3D adventure games that we've played in the past, I love this. I mean, I like the look of it, man. And someone mentioned the sort of faux sequel. So Core went on to make a game called Dragonstone, which was I don't know, if an homage or I don't know if it's a direct sequel. We'll have to try it one of these days. In fact, I think I own it. Now I think about it, I think I got it on the shelf back there. But if they could go and take this game, because as a first game, you got something here, right? You take this game, you work out the kinks. You know what I'm saying? You could have had a real super killer game, I think, with the bones of what they had for Darkmere. You agree?
I agree.
I agree. So there you go. A quick look at Darkmere. I'd say if you're someone who's just like if you're a casual player and you're looking for an RPG just to kill an evening, just to explore, have a good time, this might not be your worst choice.
Are you a sketchy tech? Do you have the right tools for the job? Have there been incidents? Next time, don't try to fix it yourself. Send your broken Amiga to Retro Rewind. Get a full diagnostic, a reasonable estimate, and the peace of mind knowing that your machine is in the hands of real technicians with decades of experience and cutting-edge repair equipment. Save 10% off your repair with the promo code Amigos10. Thank you to RetroRewind.ca for supporting this episode.
Amiga News.
All right, Aaron, we kick things off at Amiga News this week with the return of the one and only Dynamic Computing Zone. Doug, the 10-minute Amiga Retrocast is back. And what more thrilling adventure can you imagine than the Amiga 3000 yellow screen of Eternal Doom, Aaron?
You know, I did watch this, and by the way, he has followed this up with the conclusion of this project in a video that came after this one. But this is classic Doug. Watch Doug fumble around as he tries to get this crap working in a 3000, including some light solder work from Doug. Nothing was burned or
Frank
melted.
loves that. That's money in his pocket.
It's free cash. But Doug goes in and tries to figure out why he's getting intermittent effort out of this Amiga. I will say this does end in a cliffhanger, but as I mentioned, if you tune in to part 2 of this, you will, which I think is it's the same episode number, but like B, I think that's the way he did it. He comes up with something that could possibly be the fix, and so I'm not going to ruin it for people, but it's truly a mystery. And Doug uses all his super duper Amiga brain power to get in there and get it figured out. So it's always good for a laugh. Doug is he's a nutty guy, but he's got a lot of brain power, and he knows his stuff, and also gets a little help in this one. So I'm happy to see him back. It's always great to have Ted Mark back in the house.
Oh, yeah. Coming up next, Aaron, in news that's sure to thrill and delight you, Indie Retro News, the web's finest source of indie games for all your favorite platforms, including the Amiga.
You got that right.
There is a new entry for Amiga Cami's world-famous Game Jam, the sequel that never was. This is Battle Squadron 2, Aaron. I know you were a big fan of the original back in the day.
Yeah, well, we both like this one.
I do.
And
yeah.
And so when someone's got the jack has the guts to say, hey, here's a sequel, you know I'm interested in having a look at this bad boy. And so I did check this out. In fact, I'm going to be playing this on stream in just a few hours, probably about 20 hours from now. This looks pretty good. I got to get in there and jump in there with it and see how it plays. But I mean, it looks like a pretty solid shooter. I mean, one thing you got to remember, Battle Squadron was a game worked on by a team of guys who were like real pros, who had, if you'll recall, it had all the great digitized audio, and it had like transparencies and all sorts of incredible effects. I'm not holding anyone who's doing this on their lonesome to the standard of that. But if you could put together a quality shmup, I'm on board. And if he brings forward any sort of the gameplay elements of Battle Squadron, that'd be great. So I'm anxious to give that a whirl, Boater.
You know, this was developed by quite the team. This is a Bitwise Brains joint.
Yeah.
And the music was done by none other than Hoffman.
Oh,
so
wow.
If nothing else, you know, this is going to have a kicking soundtrack.
Yeah. I can't wait to get it on that boat. I was so excited when I saw that. This is an exciting week. There's all kinds of great stuff.
Yeah. Next up, Aaron, Monaco 79, a new Amiga game inspired by Sega's classic Monaco GP. Now, Aaron, this is I know I'm still a young man, baby.
Yeah.
But you were around in '79. Were you playing a lot of this Monaco '79 by Sega in the arcades?
I almost bought one of these one time,
Really?
but there was a cocktail in Huntington. I mean, it was in my car practically, brother. I can't, but someone swooped in at the last minute and scooped me on it. I'll never forgive them. I know who it was, too. I know you are. But I like these sorts of games from back in the day. They were just like scrolling driving game, but with a little bit of panache in there. And so to see this one come out on the Amiga, I'm very excited. This is the old dodge the oncoming cars routine.
Mhm.
Some of these have different ways of scoring. Sometimes they score you per car. Sometimes they have a score based on time. I don't recall which one this one has. I think this one has basically a time score, but it looks great. I've got it. Looks very nice. And what they've done here, which is very clever, and we've seen this before, is they've put the logo on the side to turn this into a vertical monitor setup, and it works. This is the way it should be. If you played this games in the arcade, what you got was, this is why I wanted it so bad. The bezel of this thing actually had like LEDs in it, or not LEDs, LCDs,
Right.
that would work, and it had blinking like lights in it and stuff. It was real cool.
Well, yeah,
you
this
know.
is when it's sort of like Night Driver. There was real world stuff on the cab
Yeah.
to immerse you because the graphics were not, the best.
Yeah, but this looks really good, and I like the fact that they've also implemented even the headlights section, which is always cool. This looks like a real winner boat. I'm anxious to play this one as well.
This is another entry for the Game Jam. It can be considered a prequel to Super Monaco GP, the Sega arcade port developed by Probe and released for the Amiga by US Gold.
Very good. I like that. So see, he took the gimmick and he ran it backwards. I like
That's
that
right.
boat.
That's
the way
right.
to do it.
And Aaron, this next one, Master of Minefields.
Yeah.
Minesweeper is one of those games I do not have the brain power to understand. Even to this day, I don't know how it works. Did you
I
play a
don't
lot of
either.
Minesweeper back in the day?
No, I don't know how to play it either. I never played it. I can barely play solitaire. But this looks nice. I mean, this looks pretty good, and graphically speaking. But yeah, when it comes to Minesweeper, I don't know jack squat about Minesweeper, Bode.
Yeah. Now, if you are the kind of person that is more intelligent than we are, and you did get a lot of Minesweeper action in, you'll be anxious to try this out. This is it's very colorful. Currently this is an AGA version is in development. 10 game modes, including 2-player competition mode over 350 stages.
Holy
So
smokes.
this is another one of those sequels that never was, Aaron, as part of the Game Jam. Remember, if you're interested in signing up for the Game Jam, just do a quick Google search for Amiga Cami Game Jam 2024. And you can figure out what you need to do to get a game in. I'm trying to think about when. In a future news segment, I'll be more prepared, and I'll tell you all of the details about when the deadlines are and things like that. But
Yeah.
there's still time, folks. There's still time. Get your game in the Game Jam.
It's over.
It's over
Cammy
now.
says.
Cammy just said it's
So
over
there's
now.
not
Never mind.
time.
It's all over now. Abort. Abort. Stop your coding.
That
Stop
would
your
explain
coding.
why so many games turned up and they all look so good.
That's true. That's true. All right. Next up, Stardust Wars is released. This is a game, Aaron, that we looked at a couple weeks ago, possibly even a month ago.
Yeah.
Really, really good looking Star Wars game that it reminds me of the DOS. What's the DOS Star Wars game that I'm thinking of?
I know the one you're thinking of, but I can't think of the name of it. Rebel Assault. That's it.
Yeah. This is it looks like almost like a Laserdisc type FMV type game, but it's not. It's all sort of sprite based. This is a fan made homage to the legendary Star Wars arcade game.
I actually
you
played
can
this, Boater. I loaded this up because I'm prepping for a new games on the Amiga stream, And so this was the one oddball game that I had to actually go in there and manually insert in an ADF. And I will say, visually, this is it's quite a piece of work. I'll be honest with you. As it unfurled in front of me, I was just like, huh, I'll be darned. They pulled this off. I mean, it's hard to explain. It really, if you see the screenshots, you're like, no, those screenshots are from the game. That's the game. I'm a big Laserdisc guy. This would have fit in any Laserdisc cabinet back in the day. It's what it reminds me of. It's hard. It's a difficult game. But boy, I mean, it's got the audio and it's got the visuals. It's a very unique title. I will say that. I mean, it's a must play. If you've got the jack to play it, you should give this one a whirl.
Awesome. And coming up next, Aaron, Amiga Love. There's so much good news this week, Aaron. Amiga Love has released a new Amiga software archive. This is much different. Have you had a chance to look at this one yet, Aaron?
I caught some of this video. I briefly whipped through it. But
what he has done here is, of course, there's no end to the amount of Amiga software you can download. You got Tosec, you got Obligement, that weird French site, you got Aminet, all that stuff. But this is a new archive that is entirely indebted to sort of the user group and magazine disc scene that was prominent in the United States. So you have all these different user groups from all over the country. They all published, software that was passed around their user groups or maybe put up on BBSs and things like that. And then you also had these magazine discs, which were, things that were oftentimes just sort of were forgotten by history. You never know what's on there. And so Amiga Love has taken it upon himself to create an archive, a searchable archive that you can do filters and searching, find exactly what you're looking for. And this is also just kind of fun to have a little random pick where you just kind of download an ADF to see what's on there, and that you might be surprised.
The only downside of this is I read, I believe on Blue Sky or whatever, that this had instantly been hacked. So I don't know if I guess it's back up and running. But as usual, someone instantly got in there and tried to hose it up. Yeah. It's a good idea because I'd say, especially in this stuff from the States, I don't know how much preservation's been done on a lot of that stuff.
Right.
I had a subscription to the Software of the Month Club. It was American-based Amiga Software of the Month Club. And I had 108, 110 discs. I ended up selling them on eBay. But I often think to myself, because I'm like, I never have seen any of this since. And there was some decent stuff on those discs. And I don't know what, is it there? Is it gone? It's not like I go tiptoeing around the Fred Fish stuff that much. So maybe it's all preserved. But hey.
Well, and that's another thing that he talks about. He says that, a lot of these things, you can find them in Fred Fish, but they're not always the same versions. Yeah. A lot of times updated versions of these programs were released on user group discs and things. And so it's it's not always the best to depend on the Fred Fish series if you want to get the full picture.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Plus, if they have an easy to search database, you're not going to get that going through. The Fred Fish is not the easiest stuff to look through. So yeah, right. This is great. We love Amiga Love. He's always up to something great.
He's a great guy.
So good luck, Love.
Next up this is something that Lobsterminator posted on the old Discord. This is an interesting video. I watched a little bit of this. I haven't finished all of it yet, but essentially what this is, you watch this incredible demo. It's called Eon. This is running on an Amiga 500.
Wow.
With a 512K chip and 512 fast. And it is insane what they're able to do. And what this is it's a 30-minute lecture on exactly how they did it. This is the kind of thing that, I can't understand most of what he's talking about, but I love, anytime somebody explains the process of how they do what they do, I find it fascinating. I just enjoy listening to people talk about stuff like this. And so if you're the kind of person that's into the demo scene and you want to know how a demo this impressive can be created to run on a stock A500, check this out. It is Andreas Fredriksson is the man behind the legend, and so you can check that out. And this video has proved to be quite popular on the YouTube. Released 10 days ago, already 35,000 views, which is pretty good when you're talking about a post-mortem on an Amiga demo.
I gotta watch this because a lot of these demos I can't figure out what's happening half the time. So
Yeah.
it's nice to it'd be nice to know.
Yeah.
So that's a good find. Who'd you say found this one, Bo?
That was Lobsterminator.
Very good. Very good. That's great. Great work, Lobby. That's nice stuff.
Next up, we're getting close to Christmas, Aaron. We got one more story from Indie Retro News. Sanatron 2024, a Christmas blaster from Nivrig Games. This is a 2D shooter, sort of. It looks kind of like a Seamus or a very sort of primitive looking Mad TV, I guess.
I think they're going for a Robotron deal.
Robotron, that's probably an apt comparison. And so this is a game, and Aaron, I believe you took a look at this and you said that there is no demo up of this yet.
Everything.
It's only this is available only with Amiga Addict issue 34.
That's
well,
right.
Listen, you can't get too mad because this is actually probably a win-win for both Nivrig and Amiga Addict. Nivrig has built up a reputation for putting out some stellar software, and Amiga Addict, this is, a little exclusivity, never hurt the old bottom line. You know what I'm saying?
Well, hey, I like that. That's a part of a magazine. That's cool. And we love those guys over there. But this does look good. Hopefully, one of these days it'll be available for non-subscribers or people can pick it up. But it looks good. And I'll as soon as I can get hold of it, I'll give it a whirl. It looks nice. I like Christmas games. Get you in the mood.
Yeah.
And by the way, while we're talking about Indie Retro News, Indy put up and I think he was in the chat. I don't know if he's still in here. Neil over at Indie Retro News put up a message this week. I mean, he was just beat down. I mean, it's amazing to me that a guy who does, you show me the outfit that doesn't use his site for source that talks about a up-and-coming homebrew, and you point them out to me, show them to me, because I don't know who they are. Everyone out listen to uses that site as a source, and Neil is over there. He's doing yeoman's work and getting stuff, got weird stuff. People getting mad at him for stuff, getting death threats and stuff. That's ridiculous, man. So I will say, because I was talking to Boat about this before the show started, on behalf of the Amigos and me and Brent as well, we give Indie Retro News a big thumbs up. I use his site. I'm on there practically 2 or 3 times a day, every day, to find the scoop and stuff, plus the links to get the stuff. I mean, it's an invaluable source. It's right there with Lemon and Hall of Light in terms of my daily usage. So I just want to say that something we probably don't say enough is we really do appreciate the hard work that's going on over there, Boater.
Absolutely. We appreciate you, Neil. We're sorry that people are idiots. Listen, man, ignore them as much as you can, and just know that we love you. We love you.
That's right. Well said, Boat.
Pixels of Dawn, his ear in the chat, executive editor of Amiga Addict magazine, he says that the game will be available closer to Christmas without the branding. So
very good.
Well, hopefully
Just
we'll
go
have
buy
it in
the magazine.
time. Yeah, but still buy the magazine. Hopefully we'll have it in our hot little hands by the time. This will be a fun post-Christmas game to fire up during Amigathon, which we probably should start talking about here pretty soon. And so we look forward to that. We'll probably be announcing the date of Amigathon next week. So be ready for that.
Sounds good.
All right, Aaron. We're moving on to a video snapshot of the World of Commodore 2024.
Whoops. I skipped one. There he is. This was the big deal, Boat, right here, man.
That's right. That's right. So, of course, our buddy Frank at Retro Rewind, he is the head honcho of World of Commodore. This thing went down up in Canada this past weekend, and it looks like it was quite the gathering. Quite the gathering. Many different systems on display and for purchase. I saw representing almost any kind of computer you can think of were there, and it looked to be a very sort of warm, kind of intimate gathering. A far cry from the sort of crass commercialism you see with VCF these days. The further we can get away from those sorts of festivals, the
Don't
better.
rag on VCS. That's a great thing too. But
I've
we
always
love
hated
everything. Oh,
The next, so Frank
Look
was
at
there,
that.
of
Is that
course.
color?
Yeah, he was there, and of course, I think this was his SS64. It was no, it's not. I take it back. It was not his SS64 that was running Doom on this, but yeah, this looked like a really fun thing. Unfortunately, due to some logistical errors, we were unable to attend this year. But we hope in the future that we can cross the border, get up there to Canada, and check out World of Commodore.
You know, you're covering for me there, Bo, because I didn't get my passport in time. But I will say, this also happened to fall on a rough weekend because it's right. It would have been. I would have missed Thanksgiving. I found out later on, so it could have. Hopefully next year it'll work out a little bit better. But this does look great, and I know one thing. We're gonna have to present a lot of crap at the border because I've already seen a ton of stuff I would have bought at this thing, and also we're gonna be stuck at the border showing the border guards all the crap I'm gonna buy next year because it looks great.
All right, Aaron, and now the story you've all been waiting for. You and I started a little podcast way back in 2019 called R. Sinclair. Who would have known the minute I stepped off the show and sort of let your light shine brighter that the Guardian pick up the show and it's over. It's over for the Amigos. Our star is faded. And the star of R. Sinclair is on the rise. So what did you think, Aaron, when you opened up the UK's most popular online newspaper and saw your podcast reviewed there?
You know, I do read a lot of stuff in the Guardian. You know, so it's not like sometimes stuff just sneaks up on you. Like, what's that? Who's that? So when someone linked that up, gosh, I wish I could remember who it was. The Discord that mentioned it first. I was blown away. I was like, holy crap, you're kidding me. And sure enough, they did maybe they do this every month. It's probably not a big deal. But for me, I was very pleased. It was the name of the article is Podcast Picks of the Week. Julie Davis. Oh, I don't know. The rest of it is irrelevant. Picks of the Week. And they mention, scrolling down, they mention R. Sinclair. We get a little paragraph here where they mention me and the Brent. So they sort of gave you the axe, Boat. But the funny thing is they mentioned games that you were on the show for. So technically, I call this a three-way victory. But I mean, listen, I love it. It's great for people to know. It's nice that people know you exist, I guess is the best way to put it. I mean, yeah, we got a lot of people that listen to the show or whatever, but it is nice to get coverage, and especially when it's coverage from something I've heard of. And like I go to read articles on. It's like, wow, I can't believe it. And in the UK, added bonus. So it was quite a treat, Bo. I was very pleased by it.
Yeah, I knew you would be. It's a fantastic honor, and we thank the Guardian for picking it up.
Yeah,
we got one more story, Aaron. This was posted on our Discord as well. I believe.
Yeah, you have to explain this one to me.
Graham shared this with us. Now, as you can see here, this is a GitHub page, which normally whenever I go to a page that looks just like this, I back right on out of it because I know I want no part of it. But for the technically minded, I believe that this is a way that you can replace your CDTV with a Raspberry, or the drive in your CDTV with a Raspberry Pi. One of those sort of gimmicks that they have. What do you call it when you replace an optical drive with a little computer chipset?
I don't know if it's got a formal name, but it's basically you're getting rid of the physical media, brother, the thing that's going to die. I mean, what do you make of this, Bo? A good idea? Because you know me, I'd hack this thing in half with an axe and stick the pie in there like a geek. But I mean, do you like the idea of replacing something like that? I mean, because the CD TV is sort of iconic. Can you get away with that without trying to fix the drive first or whatever?
Pix again saves the day. ODE is what I was thinking of, not ODB. ODE. ODE is optical drive emulator. So yeah, in most cases I'm in favor of stuff like this, but I don't know if it's necessary for the CDTV because I believe that the CDTV aren't there ways that you can aren't there already solutions for flash storage on the CDTV?
That's out of my pay grade.
I don't know. I don't know.
Probably, but maybe this is a cheaper alternative.
It could be. It could be. Listen, I'm for everything. Listen, you need to take a Dremel to your CDTV and just get right on in there, man. Let
That's how
that
you
plastic fly.
Yeah.
Let it fly.
It melts, and it makes a lovely scent. It's a nice smell you can have when you do it. Yeah,
That's going to do it for this week's Amiga News, Aaron. What do we got coming up on the show next week?
Let's find out, Boater. It's TV sports baseball, Bode. Baseball season is really not really upon us, actually. It's the middle of winter.
Although the World Series is so late these days that it's almost as if it just left us.
I will say,
TV sports. This is going to be the last TV sports game I believe we have yet to cover. Is that correct?
No. Oh. Don't forget about TV sports boxing.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
still
one in the kitty then.
That's right. So we'll, and the funny thing about this, this game, I've played this and I do know a little something about it, and it holds a secret that no man should know, but we'll reveal it next week, Bode.
Boy, I can't wait. All right, guys, as always, if you enjoy the podcast, patreon.com/Amigos podcast. We appreciate you watching us live on Twitch. We broadcast live every Thursday or Friday, really whenever we can. And we will see you next week. And until then,
adios.
Amigos is made possible by contributions from listeners like you. Patreon supporters help choose the games we play, receive exclusive magnets, and get access to the Amigos Retro Gaming Discord server. Visit patreon.com/Amigos podcast if you'd like to support the show and join our community.